Before this story begins, I made one crucial change from the Dragon Ball source for this story to enhance its realism. Goku Black Scythe, known for its power to tear open the fabric of spacetime, doesn't just cause clones of himself from different timelines. Instead, it causes a slight shift in the interdimensional rift. Also, for scaling purposes, the version of Son Jinwoo we'll be using for this scenario is post-Monarch's War Arc Jinwoo. He'll have the rest of the Shadow Army but with no time to prepare his army. Additionally, the Dragon Ball scaling I'll be using is the multiversal level plus scans. With that out of the way, let's begin. Booms of bone-crushing punches echoed out over the battleground, clashing in a high-stakes extermination of the controlled barriers. Just two of them set a sky on fire with their abilities, praying to put an end to their overlord and the literal fate of the multiverse. The Prince of Science, Vegeta, represented the omen of good. Once a warrior bent on conquering planets, Vegeta had found a greater calling, becoming a protector and defending his wife and son. Standing as a force of redemption and strength, his heart now aligned with the savior of the universe, Son Goku. Faced off against him was Goku Black, aka Zamasu, the avatar of tainted justice. He was an 11th universe Kai that had an elaborate scheme to obliterate every mortal through every timeline and the entire multiverse. Zamasu was unworthy of passing judgment upon mortals, as this Zamasu did not lend his ear to their pleas, believing that had the gods of destruction simply done their jobs, they wouldn't have had to be destroyed in the first place. With one swift stroke, Zamasu killed his master. He felt no guilt over doing so. He had a mission, and nothing would get in his way. He systematically traveled the 6th and 7th universes, consuming the 7 Super Dragon Balls. After collecting the Dragon Balls, he recited the incantation in Divine Tongue, summoning the Great Super Shenron. The massive dragon appeared, its very essence reverberating through the universe with palpable power. Without a second thought, Zamasu wished to switch bodies with the scion known as Goku. In an instant, he got his wish, and Zamasu was now in the body of the Scion warrior. From that moment, the tainted Kai set out on an endless war, murdering mortals and gods at each step. He then started hunting down Supreme Kais, as he knew they would be in the way of his great plan. As he fought and felled each mortal foe, Zamasu was resolute in his effort, wholeheartedly ruthless in his zero mortal plan. The colors in this panel are particularly vivid, and they serve to enhance the impact of the story through its art. It was enough to cause debris to fly and mildly injure the false scion. On the rubble, Zamasu smiled nefariously. These bodies are gifts from the gods, and so is their energy. But you proud scions act like you discovered it yourselves, he taunted, his voice heavy with scorn. Just then, a bright yellow light glimmered across the sky, as Zamasu sat up and looked at the light. The glowing light made him stop with surprise and look up. He did a double take at the unexpected sight, sending a shiver down his spine, and even the rogue Kai hesitated for a moment. With eyes ablaze, Vegeta used his final flash. The bulging beam of energy shot through the air, slamming against the building Goku Black was buried under. The devastation was unimaginable, with the explosion vaporizing the tower and the force rippling across the city, tearing it apart, turning it into ashes. Vegeta hung parallel in the air with his arms across his chest, fully clad in his Super Saiyan Blue transformation. With power exploding off of him like light in a storm, he appeared all the more dangerous in a ruined world. The prince peered down at the wreckage of his attack with an air of impatience and contempt. Are you just going to lie there all day, or are we going to fight? Oh really, Vegeta scoffed, disdain lacing his words. Get up, you wretched thief. With a snap of a pink glow, Goku Black broke through the wreckage, floating before the prince. The two warriors gazed at each other with hard faces. A voice ripped through the silence, Zamasu's, oozing with disdain. Now I figured it out. That explanation for your power level kind of skyrocketing while mine is plateauing. It's anger, isn't it? Seeing us in pain at your son's suffering made you angry, which made you stronger, so that's how Scion's strength functions. How primal. A devilish smile spread over Black's face, which had awakened as if with a dawn of revelation, transforming your transient raw feelings into strength. He balled up his fist and held it in front of himself in a defiant gesture. Only a pathetic being like you would feed off such a crude method, which is why it took me so long to realize it. But if that's how this body gets fired up, I use my anger. In a pink light, Zamasu created an intense aura and said with a chilling determination, his right hand high, fingers pointing to the ceiling, he stated, anger at the mortals that violate the universe. In one fell swoop, he swung his right arm 90 degrees to the side. Anger directed at the other gods who are patient with this morning. Energy around his body coalesced into his right hand, which became a blade of raw concentration, pure power. Eyes glittering with a new heat, he raised his left hand in front of himself, as if in a half prayer. And most importantly, the white-hot rage I feel now toward myself, he continued, his voice becoming a low, slow growl, for letting you gain the upper hand on me in our struggle. Ever so slowly, Black brought his right hand, which was still clutching the energy blade, over to his left hand, until the moment it made contact with his skin, and the blade started dissolving. Zamasu grunted. It was sick, but his face twisted into a wild grin, laughter spilling from his mouth as if he had just enjoyed the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Purple electricity crackled around Zamasu's hand as if the energy circulating inside was evil. As the event unfolded, Vegeta could only bear witness to the confused spectacle and its potential danger. Zamasu laughed again, placing his left hand against the searing energy blistering his skin. Then, he took hold of the tip of his right hand with his left, allowing flickering, dancing pink energy to spill forth from his fingertips. At last, he wrestled back control, his laughter taking on a darker tone as he turned his attention to his hands. Slowly, he took his right hand from over his left, and a searing light exploded, washing out the face of the battlefield. As the light faded, Zamasu's insane grin only grew larger. He had focused and controlled his ki, and out of it, he had created a new, deadly instrument. The energy that sculpted his body was hard and molded and held something in the air around him that crackled like lightning, and the weapon in his hand had a mind of its own as it pulsed with the intent to kill. Goku Black completed his transformation and twisted his scythe, waving it and showing how massive it actually was, his weapon of choice being a large scythe with a pink energy drawing making it appear menacing. This new threat could always tip the scales of their battle, so Vegeta allowed his eyes to narrow as he glanced at the scythe before him. But the Saiyan Prince held his ground, unwavering in his resolve. Now he's got a scythe, he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. Meanwhile, outside the battlefield, Universe 7 and Universe 11's Supreme Kai gazed in praise and feigned examination at the energy bursting forth from Zamasu's blade of destruction. Black, though, ignored their attention, looking instead at his handiwork. He lifted his scythe into the air with a newfound vigor. Energy crackling around the blade. That's right, mortal, Zamasu said, his voice filled with arrogance as he continued on, my rage divine and the power born from that rage, I have created this new weapon capable of destroying you. Pointing the scythe acute towards the prince, he continued with the following, you should understand that by learning rage, you are allowing me, the user, to be more powerful. My wrath runs deeper than any mortal mind can fathom, so my strength will be unmatched, as well. He stood there, eyes narrowed and smirk wide, with confidence emanating from him just as much as his new weapon. And this scythe shall etch my reminder upon your dying flesh, he said, swinging the scythe across his body and over his head. By the power of my divine anger. However, Vegeta appeared unfazed. He dragged his shoulders forward lazily and shifted his expression to bored contempt. The two warriors stood frozen in midair for a few seconds, the tension rising like electricity in the air. The once still demon turned and sliced Vegeta with a slash of pink energy that exited from his scythe. In a flash, Vegeta avoided the blow and stood next to Black, crossing his arms. Ha, as if that gives you the leg. Before Vegeta could complete his sentence, a loud sound appeared in the distance. The prince and the corrupted Kai both looked up at the sound. Widening both their eyes at the sight in front of them, warping through the sky, the fabric of spacetime started to twist and rip, creating a rift that showed something not of this world. In a universe away from this one's near-infinite multiverse, tens of thousands were gathered beneath a massive, throbbing blob of a purple subspace gate that loomed far above the great city of Seoul, South Korea. It was nothing but the size and horrific palest light that emitted from the gate, shining down upon the congregated crowd, an amalgamation of curiosity and fear in their eyes. There was a man among them, a man who seemed both calm and intense. His body language was calm, but there was an underlying tension, like a spring that had been tightly wound and was ready to burst. His eyes narrowed in superhuman concentration, scanning the gate with pinpoint accuracy. His hair rustled as he advanced, slow and deliberate. With each footfall came a pulse of determination, reverberating through the silent assemblage. It felt like every breath in the room mingled with a collective awareness of the moment. He put both of his hands in his pants pockets and stood before the audience. This was Sung Jinwoo, the most powerful hunter in South Korea and of late, the most powerful hunter in the world. It was a name that commanded respect, and just the mention of it had the crowd abuzz with awe. Jinwoo had grown ever more powerful following his titanic battles against the monarchs of Frost, Beast, and Plagues. He was stronger than when he had confronted Thomas Andre, the United States national rank hunter. His piercing gaze, firm and unwavering, scanned the crowd as his senses registered the emotions reflected in their faces: fear, admiration, hope. There was the weight of his responsibility, but he wore the stoicism of a real leader. With that knowledge came his responsibility to defend and lead those who called to him for deliverance. Facing against the no man's land, the recollections of recent fights whirled in his musing, the glacial chill of the Frost Monarch's territory, the stark rage from the Beast Monarch charge, and the ceaseless phalanxes of the Monarch of Plagues. Every battle had pushed him to and beyond his limits, but every battle had also forged him into the incomparable force he now was. Jinwoo drew a breath, the weight of the moment heavy in his lungs. With every challenge he had faced, he grew stronger, more resolute. And now, as the most powerful hunter in the world, he was prepared for the new threats that awaited him. "I've never seen you so nervous, Jinwoo." The person who spoke to him was none other than the Shadow Monarch, Sung Jinwoo, who turned right and smiled a little. "Is that so?" he replied smoothly. And the one who went in front of him was Cha Hae-in, the only S-rank female hunter in South Korea. Even faced with such a serious situation, her presence alone was calming, which was a welcome contrast to the tension in the air. They went back, saying casual words to each other. Jinwoo's mind, however, was elsewhere, a storm of thoughts about the gate and its impending opening. His senses were calibrated to the dozen or so energy spikes coming from the huge structure. At that instant, violet lightning rumbled and jittered through the subspace gate, bathing the assembled hunters in a ghostly light. It would freeze many in place, their instincts screaming of danger, of doom, bubbling right to the surface. It wasn't until every muscle in Jinwoo's body was coiled tightly that he gave the gate another scrutinizing stare. "The monsters are coming. Prepare for battle." The hunters clustered defensively and at the ready. Jinwoo's lips tightened, his resolve coalescing into something sharper. Something more intense. He walked, a beacon amidst the carnage, prepared to escort his brethren to battle. Jinwoo took whatever strength he could with Igris voices running in his head. If it was hordes of shadow soldiers or waves of monsters, he was ready to confront the challenge and ensured that either land would not fall. Then the subspace gate rumbled open, and there were dark tears ripping in spacetime. The surrounding energy being thrown from the rift was overbearing, enough even to draw the very stone and deep red metal architecture into the maw of the collapse. The anomaly was powerful, crackling the air and igniting fear in the crowd, in view of how things had gone so horribly wrong. Jinwoo was glad it wasn't Igris' warning that had come true. Instead, they were confronted with an unprecedented disaster. "Everyone, get away!" he yelled, his voice rising above the din of devastation. He sounded menacing as he warned everyone that the danger was here. As if to prove his point, the rift thrummed with energy, tendril-like extensions of unknown power snaking out to grab Jinwoo. Even with his great strength, he found himself being drawn toward the tear in spacetime. He struggled against the pull, his muscles straining, but it was as unyielding as the tide. Hae-in and Thomas Andre behind her saw their comrade in danger and rushed forward, arms outstretched in an effort to grip Jinwoo. "Hold on, Hunter Sung!" Chaeyoung screamed, her voice quaking with fear and savagery, but it was too late. The pull of the rift was too strong, and with a last twisting pull, Jinwoo was pulled into the tear. He dropped from view and the world almost seemed to hold its breath. And with a deafening finality, the rift slammed shut, and the weight of the moment crushed down on the loitering hunters. Cha Hae-in's eyes widened in shock and disbelief as a lump rose in her throat. Sung Jinwoo broke through Ina's defenses, easily conquering even her strongest shield. Ina was instantly forced to recognize the reality that the best warrior they possessed, Ina's greatest friend and comrade, had been swallowed whole by the tear in spacetime. Her vision blurred as tears filled her eyes. Her hands were balled from the shrouds of rage that enveloped her body. Despite her training and her strength, she felt powerless at this moment. This man, who had guided and shielded so many, was now lost to some unfathomable fate. Thomas Andre looked skyward, eyeing the place where the spacetime rift had just been. His eyes narrowed in focus, seeming to urge the rift to reopen and return Jinwoo to him. He felt the somber weight of it, and the uncertainty of their leader's fate loomed large. All around him, other hunters started to panic. They had lost all morale due to the energy from the rift and lost their strongest warrior in an instant. Glimpses of terror and bewilderment flitted through the crowd, louder every second. "We need to stay calm." Thomas Andre's voice cut through the commotion, a steadying presence amid the chaos. He looked at the hunters, determination on his face. "Panicking won't help us. We must get ready for whatever comes next." Reeling from emotions, Cha-haen took a step next to Thomas. "We got to be strong," she said, her voice resolute. Jinwoo would want us to continue fighting, no matter the circumstances. The start of their words started to quell the uprising tide of fear, and slowly the hunters managed to muster themselves. Cha-haen turned her gaze back to the sky, flickering image of the rift fresh on her retinas. She felt sick with worry for the Shadow Monarch, her comrade who had become so much more. Sons of the Mist had stepped over their parallel mountains, and she peered hopefully into the swirls of clouds where the rift had been. She knew time was not on their side. Gates elsewhere in the world were set to open, risking chaos and devastation beyond the scale of the world that they had known. Cha, staring up at the heavens, her determination and hope so strong one could almost think she believed her gaze alone could bring him back. "Come back to us, please," she breathed softly, a prayer born on the wind. "We need you." As everyone gazed at the otherworldly sight before them, Vegeta asked, "What the hell is that?" "Good question." Vegeta faced Black, who seemed mesmerized by the view, and continued, "Truth be told, I'm not entirely sure myself." His eyes were riveted on the strange pink and purple forms of the insides, incomprehensible voids. Did I tear a hole into another universe? Or to the distant past or future? Maybe it's the physical expression of the anger that's bubbling in my own divine consciousness. Zamasu chuckled evilly. Now all that I know is that the strength within me is greater than I can imagine. Its peak, higher than man or God, has flowed. The wicked laugh resonated through the air. A harrowing testament to the vast strength that Zamasu now controlled. The rift ahead of them pulsated with strange energies, as if judging the chaotic beings standing before it. All that stuff over on the ground? Just evil laughing Zamasu from the far future going, "Ha," while raising his hands up as if a glorious sight was before him, much like a man seeing a godly view. Just as we predicted, battling this powerful scion has propelled us both to new levels. A crazy kind of derangement instantly flashed on his face. It proves our power of transformation. Our destiny is to be the judgment of all creation. Even you must recognize it now, Goku. Meanwhile, below, Zamasu from the distant possible future chuckled evilly at the sight above. Thumbing up his hands as though he was witnessing a glorious sight, as though a man aspiring in his own praise of a divine created vista. Just as we predicted, battling this great scion has taken both of us to levels anew. And his face contorted into a look of insanity. This is proof of our transformation power. Our destiny is to judge all creation. Even you must see it now, Goku. He spoke with an ill-omened certainty, and even the air around him crackled thick with the inexorable power of his conviction. The mad light was in Zamasu's eyes when he threw open his arms, wide enough to take in the whole universe. Zamasu had turned to face Goku and was instead greeted by a flash of blue light. The Saiyan was in his Super Saiyan Blue transformation, and he had appeared right in front of Zamasu's face with his fist thrust out to connect with him. Here's what I think. Goku's punch hit with a loud thud and sent Zamasu flying through multiple buildings. A few blocks away, the corrupt Kai groaned, landing on his back in pain. Goku touched down a few meters away, hands on hips, eyes narrowed on the fallen figure of Zamasu. "You've been invincible, all that's done is make you lazy," he said, his voice steady and unyielding. Zamasu laughed and slowly began to rise from the ground. "I mean, you should be so much more reckless to attack someone who can't lose. If that's not an example of mortal folly, I don't know what is." The Kai then brushed himself down, wiping the salt of battle from his left shoulder pad. "I know you're straining the gears of the mind of your little seedling mind, trying to come up with a stratagem." He paused, locking his gaze with Goku, his eyes strangely peaceful, as though he genuinely thought that what he was doing was not in the wrong, that it had to be so. Goku smirked. "Oh, I've got a plan, but if I tell you what's coming it'll spoil all the fun." Zamasu gave a smirk back. "You have no sense of when to give up at this, do you?" "No. I hate losing in a fight more than anything." Goku took his fighting pose, the two of them then pierced each other with their gaze in what felt like an eternity. Both warriors, their auras crackling with energy, poised and readied, waiting for the other to strike first. All of them felt the tension, coiled springs, prepared to be unleashed in a moment. Black glared at Vegeta with utmost hatred, a scythe in one hand as the malevolent energy flickered across its surface. At the same time, Goku and Zamasu were in their fighting poses, yellow lightning crackling and dancing around the men. The buildings nearby crumbled from pure pressure, as if their sounds of destruction harmonized with the energies of the four. They started to power up, their auras flaring and flooding them with raw energy. The earth shook as the men of battle roared above each other, each one trying to outdo the next as they sized up their foe. And at that moment, like a switch flipped, they jumped at their respective foes. Buildings were reduced to rubble in the country as the power of the tremors sent an enormous shockwave below and across the planet. Mai, who was on top of one of the buildings a little farther away from the battlefield but near the Capsule Corp building, watched the Titans clash in shock. But the moment the shockwave hit her, the building she was standing on collapsed, launching her straight off the top. Inside a capsule warehouse, the shockwave sent future Trunks reeling a bit as he held a familiar-looking pot. "Trunks, what's wrong?" said Bulma, who was sitting in the time machine, worried. When the dust subsided, the city was unrecognizable, a destroyed wasteland. As Mai dangled from a metal appendage, she clutched for dear life and surveyed the scene around her. Wow. Okay, that one was close. Mai! You okay? Trunks screamed while running outside to try and find her. Fine. How about you? She replied. Trunks scoffed, brandishing a brown crockpot that was clearly broken, with cracks tracing its entire surface. You repaired the containment jar. Mai exclaimed in joy. Trunks then brought the jar down to his chest and, a trace of relief still in his eyes, asked, "Are my father and Goku okay?" Mai grappled with her goggles, hoping to see what the carnage looked like on the other hand. At first she saw only whirling dust. But it vanished, the cloud of dust expelled in one mighty blast. Mai opened her mouth in shock, eyes bulging. What is it? Trunks asked worriedly. No, it's him. Mai saw Zamasu, terror was trembling in her voice. The tainted Kai was rapidly zooming toward them at breakneck pace, a sinister grin spreading across his face as he came closer. Zamasu's hand appeared before Trunks, sending goosebumps up closer to his robe. He gripped the containment jar tighter. They needed to hurry. From afar at the battlefield, Goku and Vegeta grumbled angrily at the scene before them, suspended as if in mid-air. What was presumably Goku Black stared blankly at the two, flanked by a handful of pale Goku Black clones. There was nowhere for them to flee except to keep the clones at bay as the Scions watched each other's backs. A pink mist poured out from the edge of the rift, swirling just beyond the outline, and forming yet another clone. This latest clone floated to join the others, lining up and hovering alongside them. Goku and Vegeta assumed their fighting poses, their guard up. The actual Goku Black laughed, arms crossed in amusement. What's the matter, mortals? Relax. Don't be afraid. I thought Scions were all about fighting the strongest. Clones with twisted grins rushed towards Goku and Vegeta, surrounding in what appeared in an instant with no room for an opening. Goku kicked the nearest clone, exploding it into pink mist, and Vegeta punched another, dissipating it into pink mist as well. For an instant, they appeared to have the upper hand, but their lead did not last long. And so the shattered clones coalesced again, as if nothing had happened to them, their forms as new as they had ever been. Goku and Vegeta traded a brief but knowing look, understanding the challenge laid before them, all shocked by the sudden realization. Vegeta was planning on either cursing or exclaiming but instead gasped out in pain as he was kicked in the gut by the clone he had burned away. Shortly after that, they punched Goku in the chest, emptying the air from his lungs. That rift then generated additional clones and outnumbered the Scions with their foes. Any ideas? Each time we take out one group, another bunch comes. Goku asked Vegeta. Vegeta barely got a chance to reply before Black chuckled again. And just like that, you feel overwhelmed again. With even more confidence, Zamasu cracked the biggest smirk and said, Zamasu's defenses are impenetrable. And you have no response to my offensive power. Vegeta welled up with blue divine energy in the fit of rage and said, we are not done yet. The pair then fired a stream of energy balls at the clones, disintegrating them into pink mist for a moment. Goku Black looked on with confidence and superiority, his smirk widening as the mist spun around him. Stepping out of the pink fog, Goku and Vegeta were out of breath, their arms raised as if they were still firing energy balls. The rift then pulsed, creating even more clones of themselves, as the Scions collectively uttered a sigh of frustration and exhaustion. The latest clone stepped out as fresh and imposing as ever. "Damn it! This isn't working." "I know," Goku replied. They were stuck in a never-ending loop, battering against clones that healed faster than they could harm. While you're at a stalemate, Zamasu's finding Trunks and the last humans, and torturing them to death. Black said. Malice dripping from his voice, "You're a coward, Black. If you're trying to show that you're better, then fight us yourself." Goku shot back, eyes burning with wrath, "Oh, I will. But not before we dismantle the friends and loved ones you pledged to protect. The rage from their defeat will propel you to new heights of power, which will only serve to imbue me even further," Black said with a wicked grin. "What in hell are you waiting for, Kakarot? Focus on Trunks' ki and use instant transmission to get us to him." "Vegeta!" Goku shouted, twisting halfway to look over his shoulder at his opponent, who stood with his first two fingers touching his forehead. "Don't you think I've been doing that? Something's wrong. This strange energy is distracting me. I can't get a lock on him, or anything." Goku said, there was frustration in his voice. "Are you serious?" That unusual energy countered their techniques and threw them off their game, and they all knew the severity of it. They soon realized that they needed to come up with a strategy to fight against this new threat and keep their friends and family safe from Black and Zamasu's evil schemes. Goku Black laughed, thinking that he had already spanked the other as he expected, waiting for the inevitable results. Suddenly, a great burst of energy coalesced in the rift. The current fighters, clones included, looked towards the source of the energy and saw a young man in black garments that had just stumbled out of the rift, disoriented from the abrupt teleportation. The young man shook his head to collect himself. As he surveyed the environment, Black, Goku, and Vegeta caught his eye. He felt their energy, and everything surged with primordial malice, including an ethereal aura. He narrowed his eyes and shot a cold, darting look at them. "Are you three monarchs?" he said, sounding demanding and sharp. The young man's sudden arrival injected an unexpected twist into the already high-stakes confrontation. Moving on, Goku and Vegeta were still in a fighting stance, shortly glancing at the new guy. Goku Black, on the other hand, still scrutinized him with that stupid expression, interested in what basically just happened. "Oh? Does this earthly supplication for divine justice? Well, if that's true. One more human away from conquering," he replied. Goku Black said, his voice dripping with cruel delight. Chopping down with his scythe, it zipped forward, a pink slide of energy hurtling towards the young man with the most indescribable speed. As he realized what was about to happen, Goku rushed after the attack to try and save the man. But one of his clones stopped him, delivering a devastating punch to his gut. Goku gasped for air, momentarily dazed by the impact. As the pink energy crescent drew near to the young man, he took out a red dagger with great speed. In one precise strike, he cleaved through the energy slash, scattering it into impotent shards. The corrupt Kai stared in stunned disbelief. Unable to believe his attack had been countered so easily, Goku Black was met with the freezing gaze of the young man. "You are powerful, but not powerful enough to defeat me," he said, voice calm. Zamasu growled, seeing this worthless mortal as a mere nuisance to push out of the way. With a gesture as he pointed his scythe toward the young man, he summoned several more clones, all wielding their own energy-bladed weapons. The young man was surrounded by so-called clones, which sensed him and moved in, making the atmosphere thick with danger. Goku and Vegeta froze with instincts on overdrive. The pure-hearted Scion, Goku, sensed something wrong with the young man's energy. In this world, everything had a kind of energy. It was called ki, a life force that flowed through animals, plants, planets, even stars. But this stranger had an energy that wasn't ki. It was an energy so primal and sad it was as if I was feeling an abyss. Vegeta must have sensed it too, because his fists were balled tight. The young man was an unusual type of energy, and it further complicated the already charged atmosphere. The clones sprinted toward the young man, their blades drawn, ready to cleave him in two. But before they could even get within a hair's breadth of him, they scattered to nothingness. Goku Black, who had been smugly smiling before, gasped in complete shock. instead of reforming back to the original. The clones disappeared. The pink mist that accompanied their regeneration had not yet appeared. It was the young man, who stood steadfast, his presence emitting a deep-edged, menacing energy. Goku and Vegeta stared at each other, their eyes wide with disbelief. This twist had changed the state of play yet again. The smirk of Goku Black faltered, replaced by confusion and frustration. How? How did you do that? He asked incredulously. The young man held his gaze with cold, steadfast eyes. You're not going to fool me, he said softly. I do not have the same rules as you. Goku Black's gaze hardened. You insect. I'm going to kill you for your insolence. Much quicker than his previous battle with Goku and Vegeta. Goku Black already zoomed in front of the young man, his side reared back to shred the unknown youth. He hit, but also got close. To Zamasu's surprise, his touch did not land. In front of him was a black humanoid ant with black and blue smoke leaking from its body, and it firmly grasped Goku Black's wrist with a deathly grip. Black attempted to pull back, but it was futile. Unhammy, unholy beast. Goku Black growled. He blasted a ki blast at the ant's head, making him let go of his wrist with one hand. The instant transmission surprised Zamasu, and he jumped back immediately, noticing the new appearing threat. Zamasu looked at his side at his wrinkled, bloody wrist and groaned painfully at the bruising that covered him. Black fixed the human and the ant with a hateful glare. Tell me, who are you? You exist outside of these planes of existence. You're not of any of these worlds. The young man frowned with consideration for a moment, then answered, Why should I tell you who I am when you're going to die? Black was infuriated. He became wroth, red with the rage of this mortal's gall. If he could, he would let this one die as slowly and as painfully as he could. He felt his hatred surge, felt his grip on his scythe tighten, and his malicious energy flare in rage. The ant creature spun round to the man and knelt down in midair, its mandibles clicking in determination. My king, may I have the honor of bringing you this human's head? Jinwoo sneered, and his eyes shone with confidence. Permission granted. In an explosion of speed that could not be believed, Baru was gone, and then, a split second later, stood just behind Goku Black with his claws out and a line through the air that would separate the Kai's head from his shoulders. Zamasu managed to dodge the strike thanks to his quick reflexes before unleashing a counterattack. His side's wicked energy ripped through the air, severing Baru's arm in a single, brutal stroke. Baru howled in agony, but his conviction stood strong. The arm started to heal within seconds, wounds knitting themselves shut. His eyes burned with anger as he stared at Goku Black again. You are a threat to my king. Baru shouted over the sound of conflict with unwavering loyalty. The Ant King expanded, growing to 1.5 times Zamasu's height. The one who wielded the scythe came to a halt as he gripped his hand tightly, crushing it with his muscular strength. The dust with the remains of Goku Black's bones in his hand fell to the ground as the foe screamed in pain. Baru released Zamasu's hand and let him jump back several meters. The god experienced terror for the first time in his life. That fear of death sent a cold shiver down his back. He swallowed, and as a last resort, he sent all his clones to the Ant King. The Shadow Marshal did not wave the dimensional clones away at first. For every clone smart enough to fall, another would replace him, and the number kept increasing. Wiping his mouth clean of blood, Baru stood valiantly against these mere mortals but soon was overwhelmed with numbers. Knowing that Baru wasn't going to survive for much longer, Jinwoo wanted to make it fair. Out of his shadow, he summoned Igris, Iron, and Greed. The three shadows waited behind the Shadow Monarch for his commands. Eliminate all the clones, Jinwoo said while pointing to Baru. The shadows were already halfway to the enemy by the time he had finished speaking. Igris sliced through several clones in a single sweep of his sword. Iron, his massive strength a terrifying weapon, smashed a couple of them skull to skull, knocking the clones across the ground. Green, with his deadly strength, bombarded the clones' bodies with his punch, so that many of the clones dispersed at the moment. As his clones fell one at a time, Goku Black's eyes widened in horror. The dread he'd felt earlier now grew more powerful, threatening to swallow him whole. The man had never encountered such a superior force and felt a twinge of fear as he realized how hopeless his situation had become. At that moment, Black felt something out off in the distance. My counterpart's vigor just blinked out, then just as suddenly, it blinked back on. But now, in this version, it seems a lot weaker for some reason. Like he barely exists. Putting his index and middle finger on his forehead, he added, he must have gotten in trouble finishing up his end of our gambit. Goku Black's crafty mind, however, witnessed this fast approach and used instant transmission to leave his opponent's field of anticipation to reappear at his future counterpart's location. The pink rift in spacetime sealed and became vapor. As Goku was about to unleash a punch towards the nearest clone to him, the clone in question suddenly dissolved into nothingness, dispersing as if it hadn't existed to begin with. Goku and Vegeta had their backs to each other and turned around to make sure there were no clones left, and just like that, they're gone. Goku exclaimed. Vegeta said in a tone filled with worry and annoyance, Kakarot, do it now. Instant transmission. Realizing what this meant, he grabbed onto Vegeta and teleported away to where Zamasu was. But before he could teleport out with instant transmission, he found a cold, powerfully acute blade up against his neck, holding him in place. With their heads turned towards their side, Goku and Vegeta saw the shadow soldiers closing in on them. A long sword was unsheathed, the edge mere millimeters from Goku's throat. Vegeta growled, a nervous sweat building at the temple of his brow. Goku's worried gaze moved in every direction. We're surrounded, muttered Goku, his voice strained, and so the shadow soldiers remained, a testament to Jinwoo's mighty command. They were resolute, prepared to pounce in an instant. The tension in the air was palpable as the two Scions surveyed their grim reality. As he slowly hovered down until he was close to the Scions, Jinwoo looked at the warriors with coldness, ready to draw a dagger at any moment to plunge into his enemy the moment they moved even an inch. Tell me, he said slowly, who are you two? You're obviously not anything like that other one with pink hair. Are you perhaps the rulers? The rulers? Goku voiced his thoughts. Who are those? We don't know who these so-called rulers are, but we're Scions. A race of limitless, powerful beings, Vegeta proclaimed with pride. Jinwoo relaxed his hostility that was only a momentary background noise. The new feeling was curiosity. A fierce alien race, you say? I am curious what will be your strength once I turn you into one of my shadow soldiers. A nasty goosebump crawled across the Scion's skin. Goku's smile disappeared and became serious, and Vegeta narrowed his eyes at his rival even further. First, you must defeat us, Vegeta gargled as he clenched his hands into a fist in preparation for the fight that lay ahead. Jinwoo's eyes sparkled with the bit of curiosity and challenge. Very well. Let's see if your power is indeed boundless. Just before the two could go into an all-out battle, Goku broke the tension, saying, we can fight later, we need to save our friends first. Seeing his king getting scolded and not at all enjoying these Scions, Baru and Iron were about to slaughter these creatures, but Jinwoo ordered them not to move. You two, stay where you are. He looked his hand-picked soldiers in the eye, his own steely and resolute. They nodded and held their ground. Where did the pink one go? Jinwoo turned back to the warrior in orange. Goku felt his heart soften as he attempted to think straight. He felt our friends coming up and teleported using instant transmission. We must locate him and kill him before he murders them. He is a threat to both our worlds, added Vegeta, still on edge. We can't let him succeed. Jinwoo didn't look away. He thought a bit about what they had said. Very well. Together, we will trace this pink-haired one and put an end to his machinations. Baru, Iron, Igris, and Greed stood at the ready waiting for Jinwoo's command. With new powerful dryads on their side, Goku and Vegeta exchanged a resolute glance. Anyway, how'd you embarrass yourself before those mortals? We were barely separated. What went wrong? Black inquired, dabbing sweat off his face in a hurry, trying to hide his embarrassment from the Black of the future. Zamasu looked to Black, beads of sweat appearing on his own forehead as he said, I suppose a great deal of our assumptions regarding mortals were badly misguided. They aren't mere worms at all. If we're not careful, our dream of utopia is going to be ruined before we've even begun. Black snorted and looked at Bulma, Mai, and future Trunks, slightly cracking his voice, detectable even by Zamasu. He answered, fair enough. No more games or half measures. Because these arrogant mortals still dare and revile us. We will show them the final power of the gods. He finished with confidence, and all memory of the threat who had frightened his heart was gone. It is time to show them divine perfection made whole. Just at that moment, both of their earrings shone with a brilliant emerald hue. Goku Black gazed down at the trio and condescendingly said, "You pathetic, lowly mortals." Future Zamasu replied, "Show me your respect," and bow down. He took his one left earring and put it on his right. "Before our splendor." Shin gasped. Gawasu was astounded at what they were about to do. As if subconsciously, the two Zamasu flew at each other instantaneously. Then at contact, their bodies rotated around and started glowing white, blinding anyone who witnessed the spectacle. Tashansha expressed as the light shrank down until they could see a golden silhouette. The figure then spread his arms wide, the majestic holy appearing glow catching everyone's eyes. Like the brightness of 1,000 suns moving and radiating a protective gold hue across the battlefield. Everyone was watching the show, no one could turn his or her eyes away from the heavenly show. "My form is justice. And my form is the world." His voice was the voice of command, one that echoed in the souls of all who heard it. That golden glow was then shattered as the merging of the two Zamasu was revealed. When the golden light faded, the fusion was revealed in his full glory. So strong was that divine manifestation in his very being. Shade's divine presence twisted the air around him and made even the most courageous warriors' hearts beat wildly in their chests, either in admiration or terror. "Worship me. Give praise unto me. Me, the gorgeous, the sublime. Me, the invincible. The almighty and divine." The combined Zamasu then gazed upon his viewers with the piercing gaze of an all-knowing sentinel. They had stared down at them such an evil that is both so pure and different, like a true corrupted god. "Zamasu is all," he thundered, his voice booming through the air. Trunks stood in front of Mai and his past counterpart Mother as the group was on edge. Trunks gritted his teeth as he muttered frustrations about the predicament they had been put in. "Oh, great, what now?" On the other end of the universe, standing far away on the right side of merged Zamasu, the Supreme Kais observed with dread as the benevolent god of destruction was born into the world. Such incredible power. "I don't believe it." Zamasu merged with himself. They looked on, wide-eyed with fear and awe. Fused Kai, now corrupted, opened his arms widely, a serene expression plastered onto his face as he felt his divine energy. "I can feel it. Two deities, gods if you will, glorious and omni, melting into one unto me." A brilliant glow of ivory light flooded the sky, and the sheer force of Zamasu's presence shoved everyone aside. It was overly bright, and the energy in the air crackled as it did in the time before fused Zamasu's aura reached its boiling point. Finally, the light show came to an end, a blinding halo of white light forming behind the fusion, giving him a very divine and terrifying look. "What's that aura around him?" Gawasu wondered dreadfully. Shocked and terrified, Zamasu rose and laughed maniacally, the strength corrupting his brain and making him feel like a god. "Lo, this vessel most high, the sword and shield is one. Its strength knows no limits. I am imbued with power like none other. Glorious. Absolute. Stare in awe. I am justice incarnate." There, standing in front of them, however determined the audience was, the sheer volume was overwhelming. Up until now, Zamasu's aura had been that of a vengeful yet righteous burnout, a god touched by evil to the very core, but now it was that of a true god, corrupted in the most beautiful way. Right before he screamed out the last part, Zamasu lifted his arms up. From the upper section of the halo, two beams of purple energy shot out of the top portion of the halo. The beams crackled and glowed with primal energy, casting shadows in their malignant light. It was equally captivating as it was intimidating, the proof of fused Zamasu's newly acquired powers. As merged Zamasu prepared to release his attack, a huge wall of flame charged at him, forcing the Kai to evade the assault. When he looked back at his attacker, the fusion Kai's gaze met Goku and Vegeta side by side with Jinwoo, and behind him stood a row of shadow soldiers like a militarized battalion ready to engage. The future Zamasu half of the fusion was confused, not knowing who this man with silver hair was, but immediately the Goku Black side of the fusion recognized Jinwoo. His body writhed, his consciousness trying desperately to command the body under his will. For the first time since the dawn of time, a fusion was attempting both to bond and to break apart simultaneously. Goku Black stared in shock and fury. "You!" He spat, venom in his voice. "How dare you interfere with the divine plan?" Jinwoo kept his expression placid. "The only part of this plan that is divine is the ass whipping I'm going to rain down upon you." However, merged Zamasu got offended. and with a snap of his fingers, a powerful bolt of lightning charged towards Jinwoo. Listening to his soldiers shout, Jinwoo drew forth his daggers, his eyes lit with determination. Goku and Vegeta powered up and took stances, making eye contact before they nodded and vanished from view, rematerializing on merged Zamasu's flanks. The Scions were punching upper the deity. The Kai had raised his hand to defend the two they attack. Even so, the shockwave was great, but Zamasu would not yield, and his power was evidently uneven. Jinwoo seized the moment, leaping towards Zamasu's face and drawing his blade to strike. Zamasu's reflexes were quick, and he leaned back to avoid the fatal blow. With a swift motion, he grabbed onto both Scion's wrists, his grip unyielding. In a display of raw power, he hurled Goku and Vegeta at Jinwoo, launching all three of them hard onto the ground. The impact was brutal, and the ground trembled under their combined weight. Goku and Vegeta quickly recovered, their Scion resilience driving them to stand once more. Jinwoo, slightly winded by the setback, rose to his feet, his resolve unbroken. Zamasu took up a fighting position, his face reflecting his newfound confidence. "This will be your end, mortals. And once I finish here, I too will travel to your world and wreak havoc upon your universe. All the gods will be eliminated for my dream to be realized. We won't let you get away with it." Goku yelled out, powering up. The wind began to quicken, and the gravity seemed to have gotten heavier. In a burst of red energy, Goku appeared in front of Zamasu and landed a powerful blow straight on his cheek, striking the Kai down to the ground. Flying up into the air, merged Zamasu used his telekinesis to launch multiple buildings towards Goku. The impact caused the Scion to cough out a small amount of saliva and blood. He then compressed the buildings around the Scion, forming them into a sphere shape, and finished the attack by summoning multiple ki blasts and launching them at the sphere. As the smoke cleared, Goku floated in the air, shirtless and with many cuts and burns. His eyes were narrowed, but his sight was dull. The toll of the battle was evident, but his determination remained unshaken. Zamasu sneered at Goku's weakened state. "You are nothing but a speck of dust in the grand scheme of my divine plan." Sensing an attack from behind, Zamasu quickly turned and saw Vegeta launch a Gallic gun in his direction. With a quick motion of his finger, he redirected Vegeta's beam away from him. But to his surprise, the beam curved back, hitting Zamasu squarely in the face and causing a small explosion. Blinded by the smoke, Zamasu struggled to regain his composure. Seizing the moment, Trunks and Igris dashed towards the fusion, their blades ready to strike. They reached their target and stabbed the deity's body, their blades piercing his divine form. Zamasu let out a pained howl before blindly blasting his lightning of absolution. The lightning struck many of Jinwoo's soldiers, causing them to instantly return to the abyss without being returned into his shadow. Seeing this, the Shadow Monarch narrowed his eyes in confusion. "Those soldiers, they didn't return to my shadow. Could it be that this foe too possesses the power to affect spiritual beings? I need to be careful and play my cards right." With that, Jinwoo launched himself towards the now visible Zamasu, whose face was twisted in complete and utter anger towards everyone. Zamasu's fury radiated from him like a palpable force, his aura crackling with divine energy. The battlefield seemed to hold its breath as Jinwoo closed the distance, his daggers gleaming with shadowy power. The determination in Jinwoo's eyes burned bright, a stark contrast to the godly wrath in Zamasu's gaze. The Kai sent a powerful strike of lightning at the hunter, but it was stopped by the joint effort of Goku's Kamehameha and Vegeta's Gallic gun. Both beams seemed to be in a stalemate. However, Zamasu's constant rain of lightning was slowly overwhelming the Scions. "Come on, Vegeta. We can't stop. If that attack hits, this whole world's done for." Goku yelled, "Shut up, clown. Don't think I don't know." Vegeta retorted. Merged Zamasu couldn't help but feel disgusted by the trio and made his disgust known. "You insolent, minuscule mortals, bear witness as I show you the power of my divine light." Canceling his attack, Zamasu summoned forth many red arrows from his halo and threw them at them. Goku and Vegeta managed to dodge the attack, while Jinwoo continued to run forward, unbothered by the rain of attacks. However, he stopped momentarily once he realized what the arrows really were. Before he could act, the arrows glowed a bright red before exploding. Engulfing the three in its destructive explosion, Trunks quickly grabbed onto Mayan Bulma and flew as far away as possible from the explosion. However, the shockwave was so powerful that it threw him off course and he, along with passengers, crashed into a building. The force of the explosion was immense, and the shockwave sent debris flying in all directions. Goku, Vegeta, and Jinwoo were thrown back, their bodies battered and bruised. The ground trembled under the impact, and the air was thick with smoke and dust. Despite the intense pain, Goku and Vegeta slowly got back on their feet, their eyes blazing with determination. Jinwoo, too, stood up, his shirt ripped in half. Seeing the state of their king, the Shadow Army continued to march forward, sacrificing many soldiers' lives, but this didn't matter to them since they were programmed to be loyal to their king until death. In front of this massive charge, Baru and Igris dashed forward and appeared in front of the fusion, swinging their blades down and tearing the god's clothes. This infuriated the Kai, so in an instant, Zamasu launched a key attack at the two. They blocked the attack with their forearms, but the potency behind it was strong enough to erase their arms completely. Tusk then appeared next to Zamasu and chanted a gravity seal at the god, which did nothing. Before Zamasu could attack the Shadow Orc, Iron used the skill provocation, causing the Kai to target his anger toward the bulky shadow. Zamasu's face contorted with rage, his eyes glowing with divine fury. "You dare challenge a god? I will obliterate you," he roared, launching a barrage of energy blasts at Iron. Iron braced himself, his shield raised to withstand the assault. The energy blasts hammered against him, each one pushing him back but failing to break his resolve. Despite the relentless attack, Iron held his ground, his loyalty to Jinwoo unwavering. As Iron maintained his stance, Greed came rushing towards Zamasu, his giant fist clenched as he jumped up and slammed himself onto the god. The Kai, however, grabbed hold of the outstretched fist and created a ball of ki in his other hand, blasting a hole through Greed and instantly eliminating the shadow, sending him back into the abyss. A black bear with a scar rushed towards Zamasu, but he too was eliminated by a single ki blade. The sheer power and ruthlessness of Zamasu left Jinwoo's forces at a disadvantage. "Your attempts are futile," Zamasu declared with disdain. In the sky, more red arrows rained across the land, detonating soon after, destroying more of Jinwoo's soldiers. The earth trembled wildly, with the people inside the hidden shelters beginning to huddle together, children crying while the adults prayed for a miracle. The ceiling above began to fall down on them. This caused pain and panic to stir, and everyone tried to escape the shelter. An unlucky soul exited the shelter and was instantly struck by purple lightning, vaporizing him into nothingness. The others stopped where they stood, petrified by the sudden death of the man. Fear and despair spread among them, and their hopes seemed to waver. "Well, what do we do now?" an armed refugee asked hopelessly. The light from Zamasu's last attack disappeared, giving the people a moment to recollect what they saw into words. Among the refugees, future Yajirobe exclaimed, "Hey, wait, that big, bright light just went out. We'll need someone to go up there and check it out to make sure it's safe," the other armed refugee responded. The first refugee lifted his hand and volunteered himself to be the one to go up and investigate the surroundings. This led to everyone also raising their hand to volunteer, another person raising their hand right after the last. Feeling a bit sure of someone wanting to take his place, Yajirobe raised his hand. "Hey, what are you talking about? Let me be the hero." "Well, if you insist then," a refugee replied, pointing at Yajirobe as everyone else followed his action and pointed as well. "You're kidding? I thought somebody was gonna outbrave me," he cried, feeling betrayed by Lady Luck and grabbing hold of his head as sheer fright began to override his senses, as Yajirobe reluctantly made his way towards the surface. The tension among the refugees was palpable. Up in the air, Zamasu sent many blades of judgment upon the city, leaving it practically beyond recognition. The god smiled down on the world, opening his arms wide at the glorious sight before him. The devastation was a testament to his power, and he reveled in it. On the ground, the Scions and Monarch lay flat on the floor, battered and bruised. Goku and Vegeta, in their Super Saiyan Blue forms, groaned in pain as they stood back up. They exchanged blows with the god, but no actual advantage was gained. Even with the temporary rage boost they obtained, the results stayed the same. Turning towards the closest building to them, they saw Jinwoo slammed against the exterior wall, blood dripping down the side of his head. Jinwoo had tried his luck against the Kai, but it was an inevitable outcome as Zamasu quite literally one-shot the monarch when he got careless for a second. "You mortals are nothing but insects," Zamasu sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "Your futile attempts to challenge my divinity are laughable." Goku and Vegeta exchanged a determined glance, their eyes reflecting their unwavering resolve.
They couldn't allow Zamasu's tyranny to continue, no matter the cost.
Despite their injuries, they prepared for another round of battle. With one last desperate charge, Goku and Vegeta launched themselves at Zamasu, their combined power focused on destroying the corrupted god. But their battered, bruised bodies fought back. Vegeta's bones cracked underneath the weight of its power and shook the very world they stepped into, his body clearly telling him that the battle had drained him nearly to its limits. They struggled on despite the pain. Their strikes clashed with Zamasu's divine power, sending crackles of energy into the air. Jinwoo was still unable to keep his eyes from closing as he watched the bloody combat between the two monsters from where he was leaning against the building, gritting their teeth. They did not yield, Goku and Vegeta. They also knew the fate of their world was at stake. They summoned what little energy was left in their beings and assaulted Zamasu as one.
The battlefield erupted into chaos once again, both sides fighting with all their might.
The moment Jinwoo had saved whatever he could for the final cry for help and exchanging the last of the last, Baru, Igris, come, the two of them, with unwavering loyalty, ran towards Zamasu, their blades shining with dark power. Goku and Vegeta to find and exploit openings for them to use and take advantage of. Their frustrations were met with Zamasu's unparalleled power. That was until Zamasu was hit from the back by a new source of energy, surprising everyone from Zamasu to everyone else. The newcomer turned and recognized who attacked him in his Super Saiyan rage form. He growled. Even in the midst of a battle with 3 Saiyans and 2 Shadow Soldiers, Zamasu, the supreme god of Universe 10, didn't feel the slightest bit of concern. From the start of the fight, he was uncertain. Now that he understands what this new state is capable of, he will use it to its extent and bring divine judgment to the world. Zamasu again snarled. 2 more lightning of absolution formed.
I've had it, enough of you impudent mortals. Be gone.
Only for him to shoot his attack towards Trunks, as if waiting on such a command. The hybrid, stunned by the attack's rapidity, was unable to react in time and was about to experience grievous harm. When Vegeta stepped in front of Trunks, taking the blow for his son to be, at point blank, the attack hit Vegeta, instantly damaging the prince and reverting him back to his base form. He tripped and was about to hit the ground with a thud, but Trunks caught him.
Father! Do think about it.
Trunks shouted with an open mouth and compassion. Watching the scene gave the Kai a sick sort of feeling.
Why, you little? With evil energy pouring into his hand, Zamasu formed the ball of death to obliterate both father and child. However, before he could complete whatever he was going to say, he spotted Goku appear at the corner of his vision.
Ha!
You want more?
Zamasu snarled. Goku's reply was heavy pants. The fight with the god and his followers was really getting at his body, and it showed when he asked for a minute to rest.
Drawing enough breath, Goku cupped his hands back to the right side yelling, Zamasu! Watch out, cause I'm gonna shut all your light out. You simple-minded Saiyan.
It is the last light of the mortals that will soon go out.
Zamasu shot back, channeling energy into his hand. Goku chanted, Ka. Me. Ha. Me. Oh, great holy wrath, smite the wicked.
Zamasu shouted as he hurled the mass amount of energy at the Saiyan. Finally, Goku released a burst of blue energy, completing his chant.
Ha!
The collision and force of these two energies created an earth-shattering explosion. The sky became dark as great forces clashed with one another, causing a giant shockwave beam, sweeping over the battlefield. The earth shuddered, and tension radiated through the atmosphere, and as they struggled, Zamasu looked down on Goku, speaking with contempt in his voice. You will never defeat me because you are a filthy mortal. You are beneath me. The Kai poured more energy into his attack, and the ball of energy in his hand swelled, thrice his size, powering right through, overcoming the Saiyan's energy beam. You won't beat me.
Not gonna give up so easily.
Goku exclaimed, his face contorted in resolve. With a burst of gravitas, Goku reached a deeper level of power within. He was driven, not only by the lives of everyone depending on him, or the lives of his friends who had sacrificed everything for the same goal, but out of sheer will, to protect the world he belonged to. Goku roared as he poured more energy into his beam, his aura igniting in blue energy. The great violence of their battle wrought havoc on the natural order. The earth tore and fissured, showering them with shrapnel. Decimation fell upon nearby structures, the kinetic forces of the colliding energy shredding buildings as if they were roll park out kibble in the hands of a hungry toddler. it felt as though the very fabric of the atmosphere was responding to their battle, wailing with unrestrained energy. There was thunder in the darkened sky, and bolts of lightning danced in the firmament. Their attacks sent flavor clones soaring, and the temperature was all over the place, taking the heat of their attacks to make the air shudder and distort. The energies collided, sending ripples through the battlefield, dust clouds erupting into the air. Pushed by this new determination, Goku's Kamehameha started to repel Zamasu's dense energy ball. The evil darkness fought against the blue brilliance, a literal clash of light and color. Zamasu grunted in frustration and attempted to pour more power into his enormous energy ball. Goku matched it blow for blow. He was pulling power the likes of which he had never before been told about, to the point where it seemed as if he was slowly surpassing the fusion. Enraged at this mortal, the Kai cried, "Blasphemous fool! You continue to defy a god?" Zamasu spread his power out, in such a display of colors, and the moment Zamasu did so, he completely dominated the Scion, whose energy beam now looked like a droplet of water next to the ocean that is Zamasu's power. Goku strained to hold the position. A vein popped up on his forehead signaling the level of stress his body was going through. "I'm not losing this time." "No way!" Goku growled, fury and desperation burning the Scion's heart by the hand. With a bestial bellow, Goku called out, "Full power!" from the bottom of his heart, flushed with energy. The energy that came crashing through the god's attack was a huge beam that was half the size of Zamasu's energy ball. Goku's Kamehameha wave, fueled by sheer strength, started turning the tide, forcing Zamasu's impossible energy back. Debris and rubble exploded in every direction as the ground cracked and shattered beneath them. The walls of nearby buildings collapsed under the massive powers, not able to endure the clash of the powers. They could feel their battle reverberate throughout the atmosphere, an almost electric tension that prickled the air with raw energy. In the darkened sky, thunder rumbled and bolts of lightning danced across the heavens. The thermometer danced up and down the scale, the heat of their blows causing the air around them to shimmer and distort. The Kai could only gasp in total awe before being engulfed in the onslaught of attacks, pain flaring. With nothing from the other side contesting, Goku's Kamehameha pushed Zamasu's energy ball back into himself, exploding in a point-blank blast. A huge scene of explosion and smoke spread throughout the city. A light, brighter than anything you had ever seen, illuminated the battlefield in a holy glow, the blast crumpling the earth around you. Before the explosion could reach him, Trunks had escaped in the air, cradling Vegeta. "So what?" Jinwoo looked to the right and saw Jinwoo wedged between Baru and Igris. Health a little better than before. Reaching into his pocket, Jinwoo pulled out a healing potion and was about to open it when he turned to Trunks. They locked eyes for a moment, and in that one moment, Jinwoo knew everything. Approaching the Scion Prince, he uncorked the potion and prepared to pour the mixture into his mouth when Trunks asked what he was doing. "I'm going to heal him with a potion. We will need his help in this fight," the monarch replied. Feeling an unusual sensation that his pride was being hurt for asking for help, the time traveler nodded and positioned Vegeta so that the potion could be administered straight up. Jinwoo poured the liquid down Vegeta's throat. And, in a couple of seconds, Vegeta was completely healed. Jinwoo reached into his pockets once more to grab the other potion and chugged it. It healed his body too, but Vegeta opened his eyes and breathed in, and the pain and fatigue from the fight soaked away. He soon figured out that someone had healed him, and his eyes shifted towards Jinwoo. Realizing the weight of what had just occurred, Vegeta's arrogance ignited, and he decided to rise without recognizing the assistance he'd been given. In the sky, Goku had exhausted himself, hunched with his back to the front and with broken arms, the force of having shattered his limits shone on them. The padded warrior grunted, his form having definitely seen better days and his gaze showing just how fatigued he was. When the smoke cleared, all below could see Zamasu's fate, the ultimate god. All people had a look of shock or what was left of a normal face plastered to it. Half his face was dead yet conscious wherever it might have meant something, soft tissue shifting this way and that as the right side of his face, purple and rotten, pulled itself in to try and focus. The Kai groaned, even though he was immortal, that last attack had still hurt him. Resolute to end all of it, Goku shot himself at Zamasu, standing in front of the still shell-shocked deity in no time flat. He kicked then, quickly and at speed, roundhouse to the face, and then they started kicking him all over his body. Every blow left unchained frustration on the table. Goku then launched a second roundhouse kick to Zamasu's face, the impact sending the god flying. Rushing toward the god, Goku was prepared to unload another flurry of kicks. With that, Zamasu had his grasp on the Scion's ankle and held it tightly around that appendage, breaking the Scion's leg in the process. Goku was the first to scream, but he quickly repressed it, gritting his teeth more intensely than he ever could, and stared angrily at the Kai. So stunned by the expression on the Scion's face, Zamasu didn't even see Goku going Kaioken to utterly overtake him. Freeing himself from the near vice grip, Goku brought his heel down sharply at the side of the god's face, sending him careening back down to the ground. The impact formed a giant crater, and the halo of light around Zamasu broke into mystic powder. After recovering by panting heavily, Goku then transformed back to Super Saiyan Blue, then his base form. The effort of the struggle had drained him, and after a few seconds, Goku passed out and plummeted out of the sky, directly to Earth. When Jinwoo saw the Saiyan plummeting from the sky, he didn't hesitate to have Igris try to catch the orange-clad warrior. Quickly, Igris nodded and bolted over to the area where Goku would fall, just in time to catch him. Goku! Jumping into the air and flying toward where the fellow Saiyan was at, Trunks called out. This was followed by Vegeta, Jinwoo, and then Baru. Although Vegeta would reach Goku first, the last to arrive at the scene were Shin and Gawasu. Landing beside Igris, who had Goku draped over his shoulder. Goku wakes up shortly after and inquires what happened after the final attack he used against Zamasu. What happened? Oh, Goku's weak voice, full of determination. He attempted to dismount Igris, but the weakness within him was too extreme. Noticing his struggle, Igris placed Goku gently on the ground so everyone could see the extent of the Scion's injuries more closely. Goku's body showed the strain of the epic fight, his breath coming in heavy pants. After confirming Goku's safety, Igris walked back to his king. Baru heard something in the distance and was about to inform his king when the threat became apparent soon after. Goku! A voice shouted, its voice of fury booming out into the air. All heads turned to the voice and gasped when a giant column of white light erupted from the ground where Zamasu had returned. Even the ground below Zamasu's feet could not withstand the pressure, crushing and splintering away like an eggshell. Yard debris and shards of stone floated around him, swept up by the cyclone of his actualized energy. It was as if the very sky had darkened in response to his power, flashes of lightning appearing in the visible clouds as that power continued its ominous stretch toward greater heights. The king raged, taking a step forward, and behind him, Zamasu screamed. He radiated energy in waves, sending shockwaves into the air, forcing trees, rocks, and clouds of dust into the air. A dark energy stuttered from the right side of Zamasu's face, grotesque and disfigured. And the aura that had once commanded respect now appeared malignant, revealing the rot inside him. His anger in the transformation sent his power to previously unreachable peaks and the ground quaked beneath him. The warriors below felt a massive weight coming down on them as Zamasu ascended. It hit with the raw power of the god himself, a reminder of just how powerful this god could be. Zamasu cut off his power-up, pants heavy and bitter, but the expression on his face was deadly. Based on makeup alone, the universe and space between universes wouldn't even be birthed. What is he doing? Goku exclaimed. Gawasu growled. He felt that he had lost and now held the burden of that weight on his shoulders. This shouldn't have happened if he could have seen this sooner. Raising his lame arm into the skies, wagging it against the heavens, Zamasu called out, "Light of divine justice! Strike at me now!" A cringing deity who placates wickedness can never win. Even as Zamasu heard Zamasu speak, purple lightning started to swirl in the sky. With the Kai there was insane laughter, his princely visage no more as he hunted down mortals the multiverse over to eradicate. Purple lightning struck Zamasu, 1 through 8, inflicting the worst naughtiness Zamasu could endure for the sake of his greater ambition. His right arm started to enlarge, ripping through his sleeves as a repulsive, askew, and deformed sludge arm emerged. What's happening to him? Why isn't his body regenerating like it used to? Vegeta said, the Elder Kai of Universe 11, looking at Zamasu's transformation. Gawasu responded monotonously, Zamasu's body most certainly has become immune to permanent damage, however, Black's is not. Completing, he directed his gaze towards the prince, and that half of this combined Zamasu was black. So the weak part of his body is managing to affect the part that isn't weak, is that what you're saying? Vegeta asked. Gawasu hummed. If this inner battle is preventing him from regenerating, you may win. I'm saying not definitely, but possibly. It would take a far more powerful attack than anything you've managed to unleash so far.
Goku looked off in the distance, and he gasped, and the group turned their heads to look at him, and then in the direction in which he was looking, Zamasu flared around, landing back onto the ground, his fist jackhammered onto the ground, as his eyes were shadowed and looking down. His diffuse aura came into sharp focus slowly but surely, as if a ghost would eventually manifest himself into our reality. The holy purity of white read more like a baron's reclaiming of his aristocracy, as it transformed into mad sound purple. Vegeta scoffed. With Zenkai boost and the same Super Saiyan blue form, he felt he should be able to fight Kakaroto's Kamehameha beam. Then sure of himself, he was about to reply when Goku suggested something he didn't expect. Okay, Vegeta, it's time. For what? Vegeta snapped back, annoyed, for the pot era. We're gonna fuse, just like them, Goku said. Vegeta appeared dumbfounded by his Saiyan companion's suggestion. Excuse me, you and father could merge? Trunks asked, curious. Excellent idea. I thought it was off the table, Shin chirped, pulling the ornaments from his ears and hoping the two would take them. However, Vegeta wasn't having it and voiced his displeasure loud and clear. Hell yes, we've ruled that out. No way I'm doing that again. What? Trunks asked, bewildered. I dislike this about as much as you do, Vegeta, but if we still require substantial assistance and ability to separate his form down, it's the best shot we have. Oh, come on, you know I'm right about this, Goku insisted, his determination unshakable. Vegeta grunted, not accepting this was the only decision before him. He turned to his right and saw Jinwoo glancing back at him. A thought blossomed in Vegeta's head, and he voiced his idea. Why don't you merge with that bastard over there? He's strong too, you know. With the fusion's multiplier and that brat's abilities, you'll win for sure. Vegeta I think that would work. Jinwoo raised an eyebrow. It was an interesting prospect, one that could easily shift the balance of the battle in their favor. But Jinwoo was also reluctant. What's Pot-era fusion? What Jinwoo was referring to was the unknown fusion technique. Catching his breath from the recent blast, Goku started to explain. Pot-era fusion is a transformation that can be achieved by wearing these special Pot-era earrings. When two people each wear one on opposite ears, they meld into one enormously potent creature. Their strengths, abilities, and even their personalities, the fusion combines all of those. Gawasu added more details. The Pot-era earrings are made by the Kais, gods of creation. They're typically worn by a supreme Kai, and the fusion is permanent for deities. For mortals, though, the fusion lasts for an hour, as long as they don't burn off too much energy. Vegeta, still not excited, crossed his arms and huffed. It's not that easy though, it sounds pretty easy stuff. The fusion is powerful, but you are sharing your body and mind with someone else. It is not something you should joke about. Jinwoo nodded, taking in the details. While he had never imagined merging with another being, he recognized the potential benefits that such an act could provide. I see. So that means that if we fuse, we'd probably be strong enough to take Zamasu out. Goku nodded in agreement. Exactly. Together we're better equipped to take down this guy. We've done it in the past, and it is the best for these kinds of difficult situations like what we are in now. But before Trunks knew it, he was rummaging through his pants just to get out a senzu bean. He passed it to Goku, who accepted it with gratitude. Here, Goku. This will heal you up, Trunks said in an urgent voice. Goku popped the senzu bean into his mouth, chewing as fast as he could. It was already immediately apparent that the bean possessed miraculous healing properties. His arms healed, his fatigue melted away, and his energy levels soared to maximum. The brave one sat up, as if new and firm for the battle. Thanks, Trunks. That was something I needed, Goku said with a pleased smile. Vegeta looked on, arms crossed, his pride still intact. Well, now that you're back in fighting shape, let's finish this once and for all. Realizing this was a serious matter, the Supreme Kai approached Goku and presented him with the Pot-era earrings. Take these, he said, the urgency clear in his voice. They will enable you to sort of fuse and amalgamate your strengths. Goku nodded, accepting the earrings with a fierce glint in his eye. Thanks, Supreme Kai. He looked down at his hand, then up at Jinwoo, and then placed one of the earrings in Jinwoo's palm. Here, Jinwoo. You put this on your left ear, and I'll put the other one on my right ear. Jinwoo sent back Baru and Igris into his shadow before wearing the earring. You've done well. Rest now.
And his shadow soldiers melted into the darkness. Jinwoo, with the earring in his hand, felt the burden it possessed.
Got it, he said, attaching the earring to his left ear. With the Pot-era earrings securely fastened, Jinwoo and Goku felt a surge of energy coursing through their bodies.
The air crackled with anticipation as the power of the Pot-era earrings began to activate. A brilliant light enveloped the two warriors, and their forms were drawn towards each other, merging into a single, powerful being. The light intensified, casting a radiant glow across the battlefield. As the fusion completed, the light faded, revealing a new warrior standing in the center of the battlefield. This new being possessed the combined strength, abilities, and determination of both Jinwoo and Goku. The fused warrior stood tall, his hair a unique blend of Goku's spiky style and Jinwoo's dark color. His eyes burned with a fierce resolve, and his aura radiated an overwhelming power that shook the very ground beneath him. Vegeta and Trunks watched in awe, their eyes wide with amazement at the sheer power radiating from the fused warrior. Unbelievable, Vegeta muttered, his pride momentarily overshadowed by the spectacle before him. The newly fused warrior clenched his fists, feeling the immense strength coursing through his veins. Let's end this, he declared, his voice a harmonious blend of Jinwoo and Goku's tones. The fusion revealed itself to Zamasu, a powerful aura radiating from the newly formed fighter. Zamasu, eyes wide with a mixture of rage and confusion, demanded. And who are you? The fused fighter stepped forward, his presence commanding and unwavering. You two fused, so we did the same. You know, just to play fair, he replied with a confident smirk. We're a fused fighter, the combination of Jinwoo and Goku, Jinoku. As Jinoku's aura flared to life, it transformed into a brilliant purple, radiating an overwhelming power that shook the very ground beneath him. His eyes turned into a celestial shade of purple, glowing with an ethereal light. His hair, a unique blend of cyan and light purple, shimmered with a mesmerizing brilliance. The sheer force of Jinoku's transformation caused the air to crackle with energy, and the battlefield was bathed in the radiant glow of his power. The ground trembled, and the sky seemed to respond to the immense energy, darkening with storm clouds as lightning danced across the heavens. Zamasu, still reeling from the previous clash, looked up at Jinoku with a mixture of rage and disbelief. What is this power? He snarled, his voice filled with fury. Jinoku flexed his hands, feeling the incredible power surging through his veins. The energy radiating from his body was unlike anything he had ever experienced before. His aura, a brilliant mix of blue and purple, crackled with raw power. Zamasu, Jinoku began, his voice a harmonious blend of Jinwoo and Goku's tones. You may have combined your powers, but so have we. We've created a new form by merging Super Saiyan Blue with the power of the Shadow Monarch. Zamasu's eyes narrowed, his expression a mix of rage and curiosity. What is this form you speak of? He demanded. Jinoku's eyes glowed with a celestial shade of purple, and his hair shimmered with a unique blend of cyan and light purple. This is Shadow Super Saiyan Blue Monarch, he declared. It's a fusion of the divine power of Super Saiyan Blue and the hollow power of the Shadow Monarch. The fused warrior's aura flared to life, a mesmerizing display of blue and purple energy. The ground beneath him trembled, and the air crackled with electricity as his power continued to grow. Jinoku's aura continued to pulse with raw energy, a testament to the combined strength of Jinwoo and Goku. This is the power of our fusion, Jinoku declared, his voice a harmonious blend of both warriors. And with it, we will kill you, Zamasu, Zamasu snarled, his eyes burning with fury. You may be more powerful, but you're still not a god. The fused Kai formed a ball of dense energy, his power radiating with an intense glow. With a sinister grin, Zamasu hurled the ball of energy directly at Jinoku, intent on ending the fused warrior's defiance. Jinoku, his eyes sharp and focused, saw the attack coming and swiftly dodged it, leaving a trail of afterimages in his wake. With lightning speed, he closed the distance between himself and Zamasu, his fist glowing with concentrated energy. In a powerful and precise strike, Jinoku slammed his fist into Zamasu's stomach, causing the god to gasp in pain and shock. The force of the blow reverberated through Zamasu's body, momentarily stunning him. Taking advantage of the opening, Jinoku summoned Kamish Wrath, a formidable weapon that combined the power of the Shadow Monarch and the destructive power of Hakai. The weapon shimmered with a deadly brilliance, its edge gleaming with unparalleled sharpness. With a swift and decisive motion, Jinoku cut Zamasu down the middle, splitting him in half. Everything went quiet, the battlefield eerily still as the dust settled. No one said a word, their faces etched with shock and disbelief at the sight before them. The air was thick with tension as all eyes remained fixed on the divided form of Zamasu. From the two halves of the once mighty god came a voice, now echoing from two mouths. A righteous god, defeated by a mortal. It's sacrilege. It cannot be. Zamasu's words were filled with disbelief, his divine arrogance refusing to accept the reality of his defeat. The battlefield fell silent, save for the eerie sound of Zamasu's slow, unsettling laughter. The laughter grew in intensity, transforming into a crazed, maniacal cackle that echoed across the desolate landscape. His divided form shuddered, and purple cracks began to appear all around his body, slowly but agonizingly erasing the god from existence. In just a few seconds, the fused Kai vanished in a hue of purple, leaving nothing behind that indicated the Kai ever existed. The silence that followed was profound, the reality of their victory sinking in. Jinwoo stood tall, his aura gradually calming as the battle finally came to an end. The once oppressive presence of Zamasu had been utterly annihilated. Vegeta, Trunks, and the Supreme Kais landed behind Jinwoo, their expressions a mix of relief and astonishment. Trunks, in particular, was overjoyed, knowing that the threat to their world was finally over. Even Vegeta, though not one to openly show his emotions, felt a profound sense of relief wash over him. The Supreme Kais, Shin and Gawasu, bowed their heads in gratitude. "You have saved us all," Gawasu said, his voice filled with sincere appreciation. "The timeline is safe, and the threat has been vanquished." Jinwoo, feeling the weight of their victory, allowed himself a moment of respite. The combined power of Jinwoo and Goku had triumphed over the corrupted god, bringing peace to the worlds once more. Bulma and Mai arrived on the scene with the time machine. They saw that the fight was over, and relief washed over their faces. Mai ran towards Trunks, her eyes filled with gratitude and joy. She threw her arms around him in a heartfelt hug. "Thank you, Trunks," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you for bringing Goku and Vegeta. You saved us all." Trunks hugged her back, feeling the weight of the battle lift off his shoulders. "We did it together, Mai. Everyone played a part." Bulma approached Vegeta and Jinwoo with a curious look. "How long do you have until you separate?" she asked, her eyes filled with both concern and curiosity. Vegeta looked at Jinwoo, who shrugged and replied, "Usually, it should last about an hour." The group waited, anticipating the fusion to end. But after 1 hour, nothing happened. Jinwoo remained fused, their combined form showing no signs of separation. Bulma's eyes widened in surprise. "It's been an hour, and you haven't unfused yet." Jinwoo's expression shifted to concern as the realization dawned on him. Gawasu, sensing the unease, approached and asked, "Jinwoo, what kind of person is that human fusee in your world?" Jinwoo took a deep breath before replying. "Jinwoo is the Shadow Monarch, a being who is the concept of death." Gawasu's eyes widened, his curiosity piqued. "A monarch of death? Please, explain what that means." Jinwoo began to elaborate. "In our world, monarchs are beings of great power who rule over specific domains. Jinwoo, as the Shadow Monarch, possesses control over shadows and death. He is the strongest hunter in our realm." Gawasu listened intently, absorbing the information. "I see. In our world, beings like monarchs are equivalent to gods. They hold immense power and influence." As the weight of Gawasu's words sank in, Jinwoo's concern deepened. "Are you saying our fusion is permanent?" Gawasu nodded solemnly. "Yes. The fusion of a godlike being such as Jinwoo with the body of a mortal has resulted in a permanent union. Your combined form, Jinwoo, is now an unbreakable fusion." Everything fell silent as the gravity of the situation set in. Jinwoo's fusion was permanent. Vegeta and Trunks exchanged glances, their expressions reflecting the magnitude of the revelation. Trunks spoke up, his voice filled with both awe and concern. "So, Jinwoo will remain as he is forever." Goku, now part of Jinwoo, took a deep breath. "It seems that way. We'll have to adapt to this new reality." That's it for this movie. I hope you guys enjoyed this one shot. If you want more, like this video, hit that notification bell, and maybe even give a comment on your thoughts on the video. With that being said, I'll see you all in the next video.